Have you ever imagined it, a moment when the history of American politics seems to hold its breath, where a powerful former First Lady, an invincible icon like Michelle Obama, is brought down by a 27-year-old woman barely known to the public, Karoline Leavitt, right on live television? If you think this sounds like the script of a dramatic Hollywood blockbuster, brace yourself, because this story is real, a blazing, relentless truth unfolding before the eyes of millions on CNN's America Tonight. With 20 years navigating the dark corners of America, from scandals that shook Washington, D.C. like Watergate, to blood-soaked elections where truth was twisted by power and money, the rise and fall of giants, the fleeting brilliance of stars that burned out, these are no strangers, but never has a confrontation this dramatic, this brutal, burst into view. Step into the heart of that storm, where the stage lights don't just illuminate, they incinerate, where truth and emotion clash like two sharpened swords striking in the shadows. Who truly wins this battle, and what is the cost of victory? The secrets will unravel, because this isn't just a debate, it's a fight to the death between two generations, two ideologies, and two utterly opposing visions of America, where the glow of the past collides with the fire of the future. It all began as a tiny spark, subtle yet carrying the latent power of destruction, one that no one expected to erupt into a fire that would consume everything. On the stage of The View, a show notorious for its unrelenting attacks and emotionally charged debates, Michelle Obama stepped forward with the poised confidence of someone who had once stood atop the pinnacle of power. The rhythmic click of her high heels on the wooden floor echoed like a metronome of unshakable certainty. Her smile wasn't just warm, it was a razor-sharp blade, concealing a strength that could slice through any armor. When she spoke, her voice, deep and steady yet edged with ice, rang out, each word forged in steel, striking like hammer blows. Donald Trump is a pathetic failure. The room froze for a split second as if the world paused to listen, then exploded in thunderous applause as she pressed her assault. She denounced Trump's deportation policies as inhumane, a stain that tore apart immigrant families to feed the bloated ego of a man devoid of compassion. She didn't stop there. Turning her sights on Trump's marriage to Melania, her tone laced with biting sarcasm, fake to the point of laughable. The audience's laughter mingled with roaring applause, like fuel poured onto the fire Michelle had ignited. Across screens nationwide, millions felt her power. A former First Lady who hadn't just survived years of turbulence, but stood as a beacon amid the political storm. Yet in that moment, as she basked in what seemed a flawless strike, she unknowingly lit the fuse of a time bomb, a bomb named Karoline Leavitt, a name no one yet realized would shake the nation to its core. Time raced by like a gust of wind, and just hours later, as the echoes of The View still blazed across headlines from small news sites to giants like The Washington Post, Karoline Leavitt, White House press secretary, stormed onto Fox News like a specter from a nightmare. Her eyes blazed, not with blind rage, but with a resolute, cutting flame, like a warrior who'd sharpened her blade through sleepless nights for the fight of her life. Clad in a sleek black suit, she stood before the cameras, hands clenched as if ready to shatter any barrier in her path. Michelle just attacked President Trump, her voice rang through the microphone, hard as tempered steel. She picked the wrong person to mess with. Fox News viewers, accustomed to sharp critiques, still found themselves stunned by the audacity of her words. "I'm ready to face her anywhere, anytime, to expose the truth," she declared, her gaze piercing the lens as if it could cut through the screen, challenging not just Michelle, but anyone who dared question her loyalty to Donald Trump. This wasn't the hollow bravado of a young press secretary. It was a declaration of war, a gunshot ringing across newsrooms, X-posts, and millions of American homes. Sitting in a small room in Virginia, pen scratching across paper, an electric jolt coursed down the spine. This wasn't just an event, it was the birth of an unstoppable tempest. Leavitt's challenge wasn't a mere knee-jerk reaction, it was a calculated strike, an arrow aimed straight at the heart of Michelle Obama and the legacy she represented. As Michelle exited The View with a victor's smile, believing she'd scored a public triumph, Karoline Leavitt was quietly preparing a counterattack no one saw coming, On X, hashtags like Michelle tax Trump began to spread, but within minutes, Leavitt fights back surged like a tidal wave, drowning out all predictions. Journalists, from seasoned CNN veterans to young Breitbart writers, scrambled to their keyboards, forecasting an unprecedented showdown. A call to an old Washington source, someone who'd worked in the Obama White House, yielded a hushed, pensive warning. Michelle might have been too confident. She doesn't know she just kicked a hornet's nest. Back then, the weight of those words wasn't fully clear, but as Karoline Leavitt wrapped her Fox News appearance, her proud stare was a harbinger. Michelle Obama had awakened a foe she couldn't afford to underestimate. CNN seized the moment, turning the gauntlet into reality. America Tonight became the arena, with Anderson Cooper, a battle-hardened journalist who'd faced the toughest interviews, cast as the reluctant referee in a clash no one could predict. The air crackled with anticipation, as if the entire nation held its breath. News spread like wildfire across dry plains, from New York coffee shops to dusty Texas roads. On X, hashtags flared, Michelle's Karoline, Trump defender, while major outlets like the New York Times and Fox News rushed out initial reports on what was dubbed the Battle of the Decade. Michelle Obama, with her trademark calm, accepted CNN's invitation with a subtle nod and unshakable confidence. "I'm always ready to speak the truth." But behind her steady gaze was there a flicker of doubt. Karoline Leavitt, meanwhile, with a proud smirk and fists clenched tight, fired off an X post moments after agreeing. "She'll regret opening her mouth. I'll crush her on CNN, no mercy." That declaration cut through the political landscape like an icy wind, signaling that this wasn't just a debate, it was a fight to the death, where only one could stand when the stage lights dimmed. The fateful night arrived, a storm foretold yet stunning in its ferocity. Inside CNN's studio, blazing lights bathed the stage, the air thick with tension, like the calm before a thunderclap. Michelle Obama entered from the left, her elegant blue dress hugging her frame, eyes cool but holding that signature smile, a smile that had melted millions of hearts worldwide. She moved with the poise of someone who'd faced towering waves and emerged unbroken, though her gaze carried a hint of wariness few had seen before. Opposite her, from the right, Karoline Leavitt strode in, her black suit sharp as a freshly honed blade, hands gripping the table, eyes ablaze like a warrior poised for her final stand. Anderson Cooper stood between them, his steady voice cutting through the microphone, striving for neutrality amid two volcanoes ready to erupt. "Welcome to a special evening. We have two guests, former First Lady Michelle Obama and White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt." The audience clapped, but the sound couldn't mask the strain rippling through the room, a whiff of gunpowder before the blast. Cooper pressed on, his tone even but tinged with unease. "After Mrs. Obama's sharp criticisms on The View, we're here to hear both sides. Mrs. Obama, please begin." But before Michelle could speak, Karoline Leavitt leaned forward, her voice slicing through like steel. "No need to beat around the bush, Anderson. Michelle called President Trump a failure. I'm here to set the record straight, right now." The room froze, murmurs spreading like ripples on water. Cooper stammered, grasping for control. "Ms. Leavitt, please wait." But Karoline Leavitt didn't pause, not for a second. She pointed straight at Michelle, her eyes sparking like an arrow loosed from a bow. "You talk about failure? Look at your husband's 8 disastrous years. Obamacare was a mess, millions of Americans lost jobs, and you sit there preaching like you're blameless. I'm not here for your fairy tales." Gasps echoed from the crowd as if they'd just seen a sucker punch land in a boxing ring. Michelle raised an eyebrow, her smile stiffening, but she held her composure, a mountain unshaken by the first gust. Karoline Leavitt gave her no breathing room, her voice cut through the air like a blade. "You call our deportation policies inhumane? I've got the numbers. Over 1,100 criminal illegal immigrants removed under President Trump. That's real action to protect Americans, something your husband never managed." She pulled a paper from her jacket, thrusting it toward the camera with a decisive snap, her stare a dare. "This is the ICE report. Criminal illegals under Barack Obama's last year. You want to talk about tearing families apart? Ask the American families who lost loved ones to those criminals what they think of your humanity." The studio erupted, half the crowd roaring in approval like they'd witnessed a knockout, the other half booing, shouts ringing from every corner. Cooper raised a hand, his voice rising to pierce the chaos. "Ms. Leavitt, please let Mrs. Obama respond." But Karoline Leavitt smirked, turning to the audience with a defiant glint. "They don't want you to hear the truth, but I'll say it. President Trump built America. Your husband, Barack, left a mountain of debt and empty promises. Michelle, you're done. I'm the present, and I'm here to show the nation how wrong you are." Michelle finally spoke, her voice low but sharp as a drawn sword. "Mrs. Leavitt, I don't know what you're on about, but I won't sit here listening to fabrications." She turned to Cooper, her gaze icy, a reminder she wasn't one to be toppled easily. "If she wants truth, let me start." But Karoline Leavitt cut her off, her voice a hammer blow. "Fabrications? The truth is your husband left the borders wide open, let criminals flood in, while you sit here pretending to care. I don't need your script. I've got facts, and facts don't lie." She tossed the paper onto the table, the gesture a final challenge, her eyes daring Michelle to face it. "Dare to look at these numbers, or are you just here to spin sob stories?" The crowd roared again, a Roman arena in full cry, one voice shouting, "Keep going, Karoline!" Cooper slammed the table, his voice nearly lost in the uproar. "Miss Leavitt, we need order." But Karoline Leavitt ignored him, leaning closer, her tone cold as ice amid the fire. "You called the president's marriage fake? I'm not here to play gossip games like you. I'm here to defend a man who acts for America, not like your husband." "Big talk, bigger mess." Michelle shook her head, striving for calm amid the storm, her voice steady but strained. "You clearly don't want a debate, just to yell." Karoline Leavitt laughed, the sound sharp and chilling, echoing through the studio like a victor's growl. "Yell? No, Michelle, I'm speaking truth, and you can't handle it. You've been in your ivory tower too long, coasting on Barack's halo. I'm different, I stand on my own, and I don't need a shield to beat you tonight." The room shook with shouts from both sides, a clash of armies with no quarter given. Cooper, sweat streaking his brow, tried to regain control, his voice pleading, "We need calm." But no one listened. The air had spiraled beyond restraint, a wild beast unleashed. Michelle straightened, hands resting lightly on the table, her smile returning but her eyes colder than ever, a warrior readying her final strike. She drew a deep breath, her voice ringing like a blade. "Ms. Leavitt loves to scream, but I'm not here to see who's louder. If she wants truth, I'll give her the truth about America." Karoline Leavitt smirked, cutting in before Michelle could go on, her voice a whirlwind tearing through. "Truth? You want to spin a feel-good tale? I've got numbers. Millions jobless from Obamacare's soaring costs. Small businesses crushed. That's your husband's legacy. Don't pretend you don't know." The battle surged to its peak, two volcanoes erupting at once, swallowing everything in fire and ash. Karoline Leavitt shot to her feet, pointing at Michelle with eyes ablaze like a warrior spotting her foe's weakness. "Trump built a strong America. Your husband left debt and broken promises. You call me young? I'm young enough to see how outdated you are." Michelle, for the first time that night, lost her trademark. Her hands trembled, her smile vanished, her voice faltered like a breeze drowned by a gale. "You don't understand leadership, Karoline." But Karoline Leavitt didn't relent. She stepped closer to the table, her stare proud as a gladiator landing the killing blow. "Leadership? I call your husband's 8 years a joke, and Trump proved it. You want fairy tales? I've got truth, and it'll crush you." The studio quaked with the crowd's screams, one holding a Trump sign high, forcing Cooper to shout in desperation, "Please, sit down." But control was gone. The air had become a chaotic arena where only the strongest could stand. Then, as the flames seemed unable to burn hotter, a sudden silence crashed in, like a clear sky after a tempest. Michelle sat upright, hands clenched on the table, her steely gaze stripped of the smile that once defined her. She drew a deep breath, her voice low, almost trembling, a warrior realizing no retreat remained. "Ms. Leavitt can yell all she wants, but I'm not here to play who's loudest. I don't need to win this game to know I'm right." Her words rang as a last stand to hold her dignity, but in the studio's heavy air they sounded more like surrender than a counterstrike. Karoline Leavitt steps away, smirked, her sharp laugh cutting through like a predator's snarl. "You're giving up because you know I'm right. Trump's the winner, you and your husband the losers." She turned to the crowd, her eyes proud as a gladiator's after the kill. "She wants you to believe Barack saved America? Look at the skyrocketing debt, the chaotic borders, the empty promises he left. Trump fixed it all, and she can't stand it." The audience roared again, a tidal wave of sound, one waving a MAGA sign as Cooper, sweat-soaked, begged in vain, "Please, sit down." But Karoline Leavitt didn't care. She stepped off the stage, hands relaxed but eyes still burning, leaving Michelle seated, hands pale from gripping tight, her stare vacant like a soldier pushed to the brink. As the stage lights dimmed, the battle seemed decided, not in the studio but in the court of public eyes. Minutes after the show ended, social media exploded like an unstoppable tsunami. Karoline crushes rocketed to X's top trend. Clips of Karoline Leavitt tearing into Michelle shared at breakneck speed, like bullets from a relentless gun. "She just took down Michelle Obama without mercy," one user wrote, pairing it with Karoline Leavitt's ICE report thrust at the camera, her eyes afire no one dared face. Fox News pounced, replaying the fiercest moments with a bold red headline, "Leavitt crushes Michelle Obama in TV battle of the century." Sean Hannity hit the airwaves soon after, his voice electric with excitement, a ringmaster in his element. Karoline Leavitt is MAGA's new star. She didn't just defend President Trump, she leveled a Democratic icon with truth and guts. MSNBC scrambled to defend Michelle, Joy Reid arguing in a calm but anxious tone. Mrs. Obama kept her dignity against Leavitt's aggression. That's the real victory. But her words were faint, swept away by the Karoline Leavitt storm. On the streets, reactions roared just as loud. In a Texas bar, cheers erupted as Karoline Leavitt waved her stats, a man leaping up shouting, "She speaks for us." In a small New York cafe, heads shook in dismay, whispers passing. Michelle shouldn't have stepped into this, she didn't need to stoop that low. Divided as they were, no one could deny Karoline Leavitt had left an indelible mark, a flame igniting the dark. Less than an hour after the broadcast, Donald Trump took to Truth Social, posting in all caps like a victory cry. "Karoline Leavitt is my star. She just crushed Michelle Obama and showed America the truth. Tremendous." The post racked up thousands of likes and shares, pouring fuel on the fire. Democrats tried to downplay the loss, some Michelle fans posting on X, "She didn't need to stoop to Leavitt's level. Dignity still wins." But those words couldn't shift the tide. The wave of Karoline Leavitt's support had become an unstoppable flood. A CNN commentator, voice grave, conceded, "Leavitt won the optics. She was aggressive but effective. Michelle stayed poised, but it wasn't enough against this storm." As Michelle exited the studio in silence, dodging interviews, her team offered only a brief statement via a source. "She doesn't want to keep fighting this, the truth will speak." But that night, the truth in the public's eyes belonged to Karoline Leavitt. A triumph not just of words, but of emotion, image, and the power of the moment. The next day, before dawn could fully break over Washington, D.C., the Oval Office simmered like a forge at full blast. Donald Trump, a rare smile cracking his face, a grin reserved for big wins, rose from his leather chair, extending a firm handshake to Karoline Leavitt. "You did great, Karoline." His voice boomed, warm yet commanding, like a general saluting his finest soldier. "Nobody took down Michelle like you did last night." Karoline Leavitt, in her still crisp black suit, stood tall, her eyes burning without a flicker, a blade fresh from the fire. "I did it for you and America, Mr. President," she replied, her voice steel solid, each word carved in stone. "She dared mock you, and I couldn't let that stand." Trump clapped her shoulder, his grin widening, eyes glinting with approval. "You're my secret weapon. Keep this up and we'll go far. Farther than they can imagine." That moment, later leaked by a White House insider through hushed corridor whispers, wasn't just praise. It was a coronation, transforming Karoline Leavitt from an obscure press secretary into a new MAGA icon, a flame not just burning but spreading, ready to torch any who stood in her way. As she left the Oval Office, her steps steady on the polished wood floor, her eyes weren't just proud. They were ambition incarnate, a new fire blazing in her chest, craving not just this victory, but heights beyond. Outside, America still reeled, The air crackled like a battlefield after the clash. On X, Karoline Leavitt's support swelled like an uncontainable tidal wave, sweeping aside all resistance. Karoline Leavitt just proves youth isn't weakness. She's the future, one user wrote, attaching a clip of Karoline Leavitt pointing at Michelle on America Tonight, her gaze a flame no one dared meet. Another posted, ecstatic, Michelle was untouchable until Leavitt changed that. She's the Democrats' nightmare. Memes spread like wildfire. Karoline Leavitt with her ICE report, captioned, "When you call Trump a failure but a 27-year-old knocks you out live." Fox News capitalized, looping Karoline Leavitt's domination of Michelle, analysts chanting in unison, "She's not just a press secretary, she's the future of the GOP, a new MAGA torch." A Fox commentator, voice deep as a prophet's, predicted, "Leavitt won't stop here. Mark my words, she could be a presidential contender in a decade and no one will dare underestimate her again." Democrats scrambled to counter, but their voices were faint gusts against a hurricane. A Michelle supporter posted on X, resolute yet tinged with defeat, "She didn't need to sink to Leavitt's level. Dignity's the real win, even if no one sees it today." But those words drowned under Leavitt rising, as online polls showed over 60% naming Karoline Leavitt the victor, a landslide rattling Democratic strategists, sparking closed-door meetings in Capitol Hill's shadowed rooms to counter this rising threat. The political landscape now resembled a post-battle arena. Smoke lingered, blood still wet, but all eyes fixed on the winner, a young woman rewriting the rules with her fire. Karoline Leavitt, fresh from her CNN triumph, faced a throng of reporters with unshaken confidence, a gladiator stepping from the ring with the champion's belt. Her black suit still sharp, her eyes proud as a spotlight piercing the night. "I came to defend President Trump and speak the truth," she declared. Her voice cutting through the cold air outside CNN's headquarters. Michelle Obama thought she could mock him without a fight. She was wrong, and I proved it tonight. A reporter, mic trembling, asked cautiously, "Do you think you were too aggressive?" Karoline Leavitt smirked, her eyes flaring like a volcano poised to erupt. "Aggressive? I call it fighting for Americans. If Obama can't take the heat, that's her problem. She should have left the ring long ago." Her answer wasn't just a reply, it was a warning, a manifesto that she wasn't just Trump's shield, but a new force, a whirlwind ready to sweep away any who dared stand before her. Michelle Obama, meanwhile, faded from the spotlight like a ghost dissolving into the night. After leaving the studio in silence, she declined all interviews, avoiding cameras to rebut or explain. Her team offered only a terse message via a close source. She doesn't want to keep this fight going. The truth will speak, no more words needed, but the truth, at least in the public's eyes then, belonged to Karoline Leavitt, a victory built not just on stats or logic, but on the raw power of the moment, of emotion, of perfectly timed aggression. Political analysts buzzed, from Washington's hushed meeting rooms to fiery online forums. Karoline Leavitt is a rising GOP star, one expert said on CNN, voice pensive yet awed. This battle will define her career. She's made herself an icon. Another on a popular political podcast warned gravely, "Don't underestimate her youth. She's got preparation and guts most seasoned politicians lack. This wasn't a fluke." On X, the wave kept rising, a tide showing no sign of receding. "Leavitt just turned Michelle into yesterday's news," one user wrote, exhilarated as if witnessing a revolution. "This is MAGA's new generation, and they fear no one." Another countered, voice heavy with regret, "Michelle lost because she wasn't ready for this kind of attack. She's from a different era." Agree or not, no one could deny Karoline Leavitt had triggered an earthquake, not just toppling Michelle on live TV, but carving her name into the hearts of millions of Trump supporters who'd long awaited a warrior like her. The battle's echoes still shook America like aftershocks, rippling through streets, homes, and phone screens. As Karoline Leavitt stood before her office mirror, adjusting her crisp black suit, her eyes didn't just reflect confidence, they burned with the fire of a fighter who'd cleared her first hurdle and hungered for more, an ambition without limits. Her clash with Michelle Obama wasn't just a personal win, it was the ticket that thrust her from backstage shadows to the political spotlight's center, where the lights never dim, where every move is watched by millions. But as Karoline Leavitt basked in glory, Michelle Obama chose retreat into silence, a once invincible gladiator stepping from the ring empty-handed yet head held high, no complaints uttered. She avoided interviews, shunned TV rebuttals. Her team's brief message, "The truth will speak." But which truth? Michelle's, a nation of hope, unity, and progressive values, or Karoline Leavitt's, a nation of strength, unrelenting confrontation, and a young generation ready to shatter every boundary for a new vision? As both left the stage, the public didn't just see a personal duel. They saw a line drawn sharper than ever, splitting the country into irreconcilable halves, two opposing souls vying to shape the future. From Texas to New York, the air still boiled, a fire stoked by fresh wind. In a Dallas bar, cheers echoed as someone replayed Karoline Leavitt's ice report moment. A man leaping up, beer raised, roaring, "She's our voice. No one touches Trump with her around." In a Brooklyn corner, a few gathered around a cafe table, shaking heads in dismay, whispering, "Michelle didn't deserve that attack. She's bigger than this." She didn't need to prove anything to a girl like Leavitt. The divide wasn't confined to CNN's studio. It seeped into homes, conversations, ex-posts, a crack deepening beyond repair. Journalists, from the Washington Post's grizzled vets to Vox's young firebrands, dove into dissecting each moment, like archaeologists unearthing history. A CNN expert, voice low but stunned, said, "Leavitt won the optics. She made Michelle a relic while casting herself as a new America." An MSNBC counter, firm yet worried, "Michelle lost this round, but not her core. Dignity's her strength, even if it's obscured today." No matter the lens, none could deny Karoline Leavitt had achieved the unthinkable, felling a global icon and raising herself as a new conservative standard-bearer, a flame not just burning but spreading uncontrollably. Yet amid the storm, a larger question loomed, a shadow creeping beneath the stage lights, one no one dared answer with certainty. How did Karoline Leavitt, with her ferocity and meticulous prep, claim victory? Was it superior truth, or the art of manipulating a crowd's emotions, a performance staged to strike hearts and minds, craving a hero? In 20 years watching the political game, from scandal-soaked trials to blood-drenched campaigns, it's clear American politics isn't always a duel of reason. It's a war of image, of moments, of those who seize the day to become legends. Karoline Leavitt didn't just have numbers. She had strategy, turning Michelle's every word into leverage for a harder hit. Each silence, a chance to land another fatal blow. Standing before reporters outside CNN post-battle, her black suit still sharp as a drawn sword, Karoline Leavitt declared, voice slicing the night's chill, "I fight for Americans. If Obama can't take the heat, that's her problem. She picked the wrong foe and should have left the ring long ago." Her words weren't just a claim of victory. They were a warning, a manifesto, that she wasn't just Trump's defender, but a new power, a whirlwind ready to sweep away any in her path. Yet Michelle, though defeated, left a different lesson, quiet but profound. Choosing silence over an endless fight, refusing to match aggression with aggression, she reminded all that sometimes dignity and knowing when to step back outweigh winning at all costs. Her silence wasn't surrender. It was a quiet declaration that she didn't need the spotlight to prove her worth, that her legacy, built over decades, couldn't be erased by one battle. This tale isn't just about Karoline Leavitt or Michelle, it's a mirror reflecting an America torn by polarization, where media, social platforms, and public passion crown winners and losers, where truth is sometimes just a tool for those who wield it best. Karoline Leavitt triumphed with preparation, ferocity, and seizing the moment. A generation unafraid to smash old idols for new ones, ready to burn it all down for their vision. Michelle, falling beneath the lights, held her core, an icon of hope and compassion, dimmed in this storm, yet a beacon millions once followed through the dark. As Karoline Leavitt stepped from her office, prepping for her next press briefing, her eyes challenged the world. "They'll see I never stop." An aide rushed in, voice urgent. "Good, Leavitt, the press is waiting." She nodded, a faint smile promising more. "Good. They'll see I'm not just a moment. I'm the future." But in the shadows, Michelle's echo lingered. A reminder that today's glory could be tomorrow's dusk. that in politics, no one is invincible forever. So, what's the lesson here? In today's polarized America, truth isn't always the decider. It's a weapon, a tool, sometimes just an excuse. Preparation like Karoline Leavitt's in The Oval, bold confrontation like hers on CNN, and knowing when to advance or retreat like Michelle exiting the stage. That's the key to shining, whether in school, work, or online. This wasn't just a debate, it's a mirror of how we live, fight, and choose victors and vanquished in a world where the spotlight can turn nobodies into legends overnight. You, following this story, ask yourself, is Karoline Leavitt truly the future, with her relentless fire and ambition? Or does Michelle remain an unquenchable lighthouse, with dignity and resolve weathering bigger storms? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Whose side are you on? Hit subscribe to catch the next breakdown, because this storm's not over. It's just opened a new chapter where the line between glory and defeat is thinner than ever. Keep watching, because America's still shaking, and the final answer still hides in the dark, awaiting the next battles to unveil it.